Right. Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Advancing Adult Learners to Completion, the Power of Credit for Prior Learning in HBCUs. I'm Brooke Pierman, CALE's Director of Events and Professional Development, and it's my pleasure to kick off today's webinar. CALE, a nonprofit member organization, was founded 51 years ago to help organizations succeed by providing expertise, resources, and solutions that effectively support working adult learners as they navigate on and off ramps between education and employment. We partner with entities across the adult learner ecosystem to help create actionable career pathways along the lifelong learning and meaningful work. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping notes. Attendees are on mute and not on video, but we would love to see you join in the conversation by entering your thoughts into the chat box. Please enter questions into the Q&A as you have them. The speakers will answer questions at the end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and a recording will be shared with all of those who have registered. With that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague Gloria for introductions.
Thank you, Brooke. Good morning, everyone. I'm Gloria Mwase, Senior Vice President for Research, Impact, Learning, and Development at CALE. We're delighted to have you here to join us in this webinar to talk about CALE's work. If you go to the next slide, please. So Brooke has already given you an overview of the work that CALE does. I will just note, in addition, that we take an ecosystem approach to our work. So we're always trying to connect various stakeholders to each other, post-secondary institutions, employers, workforce boards, economic development organizations, and funders, bringing everyone together with the goal of advancing adult learners to educational and career success. We are pleased in our 50-year history to be the organization that really founded this focus on engaging adult learners. 50 years ago, believe it or not, it was not very common that institutions, post-secondary institutions in particular, focused on adult learners as a distinct population with different needs, nor did they recognize that these adult learners bring in learning that they've gained through work experience, through life experience, through military experience that could be assessed for college level credit. And that was the founding of Credit for Prior Learning, which we're going to talk about here today. But before we get started on that conversation, I want to introduce one of our partners, Dr. Jasmine Haywood from the Lumina Foundation for Education. We've had the privilege of working with Dr. Haywood over the last year and a half, and with another partner, the Center for Innovation in Post-Secondary Education, as part of an HBCU Adult Learner Initiative, and she'll share a little bit more about that in just a moment. Dr. Haywood is the strategy director for student success at the Lumina Foundation, and she focuses on a portfolio of initiatives that seek to advance learners to post-secondary success and credential attainment. I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Haywood.
Thank you, Gloria, and good morning, everyone. I am on the tail end of recovering from a cold, so my camera is off to spare you all what I look like right now, but I promise you that picture there, I look way better than what I do right now. So I just want to welcome everyone to the webinar this morning. My remarks will be brief. So first, I want to share about Lumina's new goal. So a lot of you may have seen recently, we rolled out a new 2040 goal. I'm going to put that in the chat for those that are interested in digging in. So our new goal is that by 2040, 75% of adults in the US labor force will have college degrees or other credentials of value leading to economic prosperity. And so those of you that have worked in this space a while know that Lumina is unique and that we always have a time-limited quantifiable goal. And this most recent goal we've rolled out has a focus on credentials of value and economic prosperity. More specifically, the reason we have taken a deep dive into this focus is because we believe that higher education should not only lead to jobs, but they should lead to good jobs and lead to financial security and economic prosperity for all students. And so, as part of this new goal, I have been tasked with leading and creating a new portfolio focused on credentials of value in the four-year sector. So I've shifted from student success to the credentials of value space. The second thing I'm going to focus on related to this specific webinar is our HBCU Adult Learner Initiative. So this was work I started in my former position as Strategy Director for Student Success in 2020, actually. So we deployed this work in 2020. It is focused on these 5 HBCUs that you can see on the screen here. And we have been supporting them over the past 5 or so years to build their capacity to serve Black adult learners. And in that time, with the support of SIPI and CALE, they've made a lot of impact and progress around things like credit for prior learning, which we will talk about today, but also around things like building and implementing orientation programs for Black adult learners, reducing inefficiencies and improving processes for adult learners, and more. So we are very proud of this work. It will be winding down this year, so it's bittersweet. But it would not have been as successful as it has been without the support of Gloria and her team in this work. So we're very grateful to be working alongside of CALE. So I will leave it at that, and I look forward to the rest of the webinar. I'll hand it back over to you, Gloria.
Thank you, Jasmine. And so Dr. Alicia Marek will now introduce what we'll discuss during the remainder of this session, including our panelists, and get the conversation started. Alicia.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alicia Marek. I'm a Director of Initiatives here on the Higher Education team at CALE. And it's my pleasure this morning to introduce our panelists and presenters for the panel discussion. So I will start and let them introduce themselves, and then we will get in to having a panel discussion. We have some prepared questions, and then we will, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and we will ask them after the first set of questions. So I'll start with you, Dr. Ward. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning. My name is Farrah Ward. I'm the Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at Elizabeth City State University, a public university in North Carolina, part of the University of North Carolina system.
Dr. Harris.
Morning. I am Rolanda Harris. I'm the Director of our Adult Continuing Education and our Prior Learning Assessment here at Delaware State University.
Dr. Westrick.
Hi, Nicole Westrick, Assistant Vice President and Dean for the College of Interdisciplinary and Continuing Studies at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland.
Great. And we have one more panelist, Dr. Ravi. I know she was having some technical difficulties joining, so hopefully she'll be able to join, but she's at Atlanta Metropolitan State College. So I'll go ahead and start with the questions, and you guys can answer. This is a question for all of the panelists. What does CPL look like at your institutions now? What are your approaches to assessment and an approximate number of students you have engaged? And this question is for everyone, so whoever wants to kick us off.
Well, I can start. So at Elizabeth City State, we are still in the early stages of CPL. We started, our primary thing was first for us to get a CPL policy on record. We have always been doing things like CLEP, and of course, advanced placement and IB courses being presented, but we needed an actual policy. One of our signature programs is aviation science. And so we had a lot of individuals who had private pilot licenses. And so we were requiring them in some cases actually to come and retake the courses that they already had successfully passed. And so we thought it was important that we had a policy so that when individuals have those kind of experiences outside, that they get credit and of course accelerate their time towards the degree. We are currently now doing a crosswalk with ACE courses in order to ensure that we are accepting those credits. And ultimately, we will be working on a portfolio development.
Okay, I'll go next. So right now at Delaware State, CPL is taking off. It's gaining momentum. Of course, like Dr. Ward stated, we've always done CLIP, and we just started accepting PLA. So we, like Dr. Ward did the policy, and now we are doing the portfolio assessment. So it is really rooted in the competencies that our adult learners have. And so it's not just about the experience, but they have to really demonstrate that they've actually learned what that particular cross pathway is.
I at Morgan State, similar to others, we passed our credit for prior learning and competency-based education policy in May 2024. We launched a portfolio course, a 2-credit course for our students so that they can have practice in building a course. And this really built on larger work where there were challenge exams as well as IB, CLEP, all of those other things that have been mentioned. So we are using this as sort of an accelerant to move credit for prior learning forward at the institution.
Yeah, thank you all. So I'm going to go ahead and start with asking some questions to each of the panelists. I'll start with you, Dr. Ward. Why did you want to implement CPL in your college, and how did you make the case?
Yeah, at ECSU, we've always served adult learners, but over the last few years, we really began watching the demographic shift of high school graduates. I think in North Carolina, we have had the pleasure over the last kind of 20 years from 1998 to 2018 to really see our high school graduate enrollment, high school graduate number increase by about 30%. But then once we got to about 2018, we saw a sharp decline. And when you look out, you're going to see a plateau in the number of high school graduates. I think to exacerbate that issue, the percentage of high school graduates that are going to college is also on the decline. And so what we realize is that if you really want to continue to grow your your college enrollment, then high school graduates cannot be the only population you serve. And I know a lot of our institutions are built around serving that population, and adult learners need a lot of different things. I think in addition to looking at the data shift, the other thing that we looked at is, as I indicated previously, we are part of the University of North Carolina system. And so in 2022, the UNC system created a new strategic plan. And in the new strategic plan, they really had a specific item on how to actually increase the number of adult learners who are getting credentials. And so those were two of the main reasons that we started really focusing on how are we serving adult learners. For us to make the case, we really started at the top. We wanted to make sure that our campus understood why we were making this shift all of a sudden. Again, it is a big shift when your institution has been built just on serving 18 to 19-year-olds. And so we did a presentation every year. We have a faculty and staff institute where all the individuals from across campus are in one single location. We began by having speakers come in to talk about how differently all areas of the campus must work to serve adult learners. So not just in the classroom, but how adult learners interact with financial aid, admissions and different support areas, even counseling and career services. So how everyone had to think differently to support adult learners. We also had those individuals come and talk to our board of trustees. We wanted to make sure that our board understood what the focus of the institution was on. And then I think the one way that we definitely made the case is North Carolina went to a performance-based metric system where our funding is directly tied to our performance on different metrics. They have core metrics, but each institution gets to pick an institutional metric. And at ECSU, we picked that we wanted to increase the number of adult learners. So now increasing the adult learner population is not only tied to, of course, increasing our enrollment, but ultimately to our funding. And so we made sure that our campus understood the actual results and things, the actual consequences of not focusing on adult learners.
Great, thank you. And can you share who is all involved on your implementation team?
For our implementation team, we first worked, well, again, I said that on the CPL policy, we thought that that was important to get in place. And so we had a lot of individuals from admissions. Of course, we had faculty, we had military and veterans affairs, student affairs individuals. So that was on the kind of policy creation. It was a broad base. Right now, as I indicated, we are really working on actual mapping credits for specific things. And so we have faculty primarily driving that unit. We also have an assistant vice chancellor of transformational initiatives. And so she is spearheading that out of the provost's office. But it really is a wide base. The other thing I will say is, it's not just faculty, that's one component, but one thing that we focused on is, how from admissions to even the advisors and student success, how are they going to be trained? And then the logistics. I have some faculty who are very eager to go right to portfolio development. And trust me, I'm very grateful that they want to go that way. And I think that's the way we need. But for us, it was really important that we build a solid foundation. And so we have individuals, like I said, from admissions working on how are they actually getting through the pipeline. We work with an organization just to streamline our application to make sure that the adult learners were getting walked through. We saw it was very complicated for someone who was coming in as an adult learner. And so we streamlined that through some funding actually we got from Lumina to work with an organization called Ideas 42. And then our student success are working on advising. How do you advise? We are 9 to 5. Again, I said the universities, many are built on a 9 to 5 model. So again, shifting some of our hours to after hours, some of our advisors shifting their hours from 2 to 10 or working in the afternoon hours in order to support. So we really had a wide base of individuals across campus working at different phases, depending on what phase we were in the process.
Great, thank you so much. Dr. Harris, how did you get senior leadership support for CPL at your institution?
So at Delaware State, we had a major advantage. Our provost, she served on the task force that developed Delaware CPL policy framework. So she already understood the value of CPL. She understood the time that adult learners would be saving, and also the tuition not discount, but the tuition savings. So she understood that from the beginning. So the senior leadership buy-in was strong from the start.
All right. What are some challenges that you have worked to address in your CPL implementation?
Opportunity, I would say, has been to recognize that the conversation is fluid and it changes. And so that we just have to be in a space to adjust and pivot as needed. Early on, the conversation was about PLA, just doing the portfolio assessments. But as we got more interest, students interested in PLA, we learned that we had to also do some evaluations of certificates that adult learners had earned across the way. Also with our military students, we wanted to also provide them with to translate their military experience to our academic credits. So I would just say the opportunity that we've had is just to remain fluid and pivot where we need to pivot.
Great, thank you. And now, Dr. Restrick, you guys are implementing a portfolio assessment as part of your CPL work at Morgan State. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys got started with that?
Sure. There were two primary drivers that really got us started. One was Maryland legislation that we had to have a credit for prior learning policy on our books that outlined all of the ways that competency-based or credit for prior learning could be earned at our institution. And then the second was really driven by students, specifically a student who was last enrolled in 1967, had a very successful career, 40 years in technology services. And we realized that his path to graduation was blocked by these lower level technology courses. And so we were able to work with our faculty to develop, in his case, challenge exams, which really made us aware that we needed a credit for prior learning portfolio process. The process really came about through a partnership with the registrar's office, our transfer admissions team, our military veterans office, and the college that I'm responsible for, the College of Interdisciplinary and Continuing Studies, which is the Adult Learner College at Morgan. As we built this out, we benchmarked regional and national CPL models. There are a lot of great models out there. We spent a lot of time on the CALE website. The resources are bountiful on CALE's website. That gives you a great starting point that can be adapted to your local sort of unique context. And then we built our 2-credit course, which is a lower level elective course that students can take that takes them through the process of writing a really strong portfolio. And so they go through multiple drafts. It's open to all of the students across our various majors. They participate in peer review as part of that, so practice around their writing, preparing the portfolio. And then when they're finished, there's a staff review of the portfolio to make sure that they've done a good job sort of aligning that prior learning experience with the learning outcomes from courses at Morgan State. And we do that before submission to a faculty member. To support our faculty, we've built a pretty extensive rubric that helps them understand what they're actually assessing in a portfolio for prior learning, and help them focus on specific, does the learning that's provided demonstrate the learning outcome for the course? Not what you believe the learning outcome, but the learning outcomes that are stated in your course syllabi, right? Because that's what we have to use, not an aspirational version. And that's been a really good conversation with faculty in showing that this is not diminishing the educational experience. It's just that these students had the educational experience outside of the Morgan campus.
All right, great. And so we have some questions for Dr. Restrick, and actually this is for anyone who are utilizing portfolios. Do any of you utilize an electronic portfolio website?
At Morgan, we're not using a website yet. We're still sort of relatively small scale, so under 30 a semester, but we're looking at how we scale this, and that will be the next step, is what is the technology that supports the routing of the portfolio. We use a tool called Smartsheet, which allows some routing that we're exploring if we can design our workflow so that it goes to the right faculty based on the course number that the student is requesting credit for prior learning for.
And do you use what tool do you use to like create or manage the rubric? Is that also in Smartsheets?
It will be in Smartsheet, yeah, so that they'll be able to evaluate based on those specific criteria. Right now, it's a PDF that is a fillable PDF for student or for faculty to use to evaluate them. And students are required to use a portfolio template. There is a very specific template so that it eases the cognitive load for our faculty in finding what they're looking for. So it always follows the same format.
Great. I think there's some in the chat, some talking about how others are building and managing portfolios. Are you allowed to share your templates? Not sure if that was for everyone or
Sure.
I think
We'd
some
be
people have
happy to.
posted links. Okay, yeah. And I think some folks have posted links in the chat as well. All right. And this question is for everyone. How are you currently or planning to communicate CPL opportunities to your students?
We collaborate with the admissions team and it's also with student success. So since most times they are the first point of contact, and when they're having those conversations with potential students or students, we let them know that prior for learning, PLA is an option. And so after their conversations, they will direct the student to me, and then we'll have a conversation about whether or not PLA is the best option for them.
Yeah, I think that we're doing the same process, but one thing that we are piloting this year for the first time is an adult learner orientation. And that orientation is specifically for individuals. For us, we use the age of 25 over. And so there is going to be a separate component of that adult learner orientation where we specifically talk about the CPL policy and the procedure for getting credit for prior learning.
So like Dr. Harris and Dr. Ward mentioned, we do an intensive advising appointment with students. Their first advising appointment is about 45 minutes where we talk about credit for prior learning. We also encourage students to use, we have what's called our transfer evaluation system, where they can put in everything from a credential like the project management professional to SHRM to their military joint services transcripts, and they can see exactly how that's been mapped. So our transfer team has been really supportive, accepted all of the ACE credit for prior learning recommendations, which really becomes a great selling point for our students to be able to see, oh, I've done this, and look, I can get these 6 credits for this or these 18 credits. One of the things that is most important at Morgan is our Board of Regents, when they approved our policy, allow students in CICS to earn up to 50% of their credits through credit for prior learning. So really an accelerant for military professionals, people with long work histories.
Great, thank you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A so that we can pass them along to the panelists. One of the things that we hear a lot about, I think, with CPL is rigor and just wanting institutions to make sure that they maintain their rigor. So how are you all maintaining rigor in your CPL programs?
One of the ways that we maintain rigor, I think it was Dr. Westrick that mentioned, is that we align the assessments and the rubrics with the course learning objectives so that it aligns. And then we also work very closely with our faculty subject matter experts. So they are doing the assessments of those portfolios. So that's how we kind of maintain the rigor to ensure that the portfolio aligns with the student learning outcomes of that particular course, and that we work with our faculty to maintain the rigor.
Like Dr. Harris, it's all rooted in the learning outcomes. And so it's going back to the core syllabi or the program learning outcomes and making sure that the student has done an effective job of aligning their experience to those learning outcomes. If there is a misalignment or the faculty says this is not strong evidence, we ask for an explanation of why the evidence wasn't strong, because that's the way then we can coach future students about how to strengthen their evidence.
All right, great. I have a question from the chat. How do your faculty feel about classes through ACE or Sophia Learning, for example, meeting learning outcomes of the college courses? So I know Dr. Ward mentioned you guys were using ACE to do crosswalks.
Yeah, I think that what I would say is that for any initiative, you're going to have to get the faculty buy-in on the front end. And so for us, our faculty, again, have evaluated the specific courses. We're early in our process, and I'll just tell you kind of one of our strategies. We did not go full CPL across campus. We picked specific academic programs for us that we wanted to begin with. That faculty, again, were very interested in order to build a framework. And so I think that's a strategy that's working for us. Sometimes campuses try to go, get all faculty buy-in at one time, and that can be difficult because of the varying disciplines. So for us, we're building our strategy with these programs, figuring out what's going on, what evidence do they need in order to feel comfortable accepting the credits. And we've been very successful with that strategy.
I know that Dr. Ravi isn't here with us yet. She's still struggling with technology challenges. So hopefully she'll join us before the end, but I did want to share something she's mentioned in a prior session, which is that one of the ways that they encourage faculty buy-in is through providing stipends for faculty to actually do some of this alignment with existing resources. So whether it's ACE or Sophia Learning or whatever, somebody has to match what's supposed to be learned through those experiences with the learning outcomes of the specific courses offered by the institution before credit can be awarded. And those are usually the faculty, and getting them to agree to that. Many are willing to do that as a way of getting started in this work. They're building on some work that's been done by other institutions, and that also gives them some confidence about aligning it for their own institution. And I will share something that Dr. Sierra Griffin once shared in her in a previous session that she's at Fayetteville State University, and it's helping to lead this work. And she noted that sometimes you need somebody other than the faculty. So what if you don't have the funds to give faculty a stipend? She took it upon herself to play the role of doing the alignment. She took the ACE courses, she took the college courses, she did her first cut at matching those together, and then sending that to the faculty for review. So it cut down on some of the administrative work that they had to do, but really still relied on their expertise to identify, which learning outcomes were being addressed.
To your point, I actually had to reach out to Dr. Cobby and Dr. Griffin because I ran into some roadblocks with faculty. I ran into some roadblocks with some faculty. And I remember when we did this back in New Orleans, they mentioned that. So I reached out to Dr. Cobby to ask her opinion about getting the faculty buy-in. And that was her suggestion, to offer stipends. And so that's what we did. We redid our policy to start now compensating faculty to do the evaluations for the prior learning assessments. And then also I reached out to Dr. Griffin as it relates to military, doing the advanced work, and just get her direction and her expertise on where should we start so that our military students can come in and already have those, their training already assessed. So that was.
Fantastic. A big part of this work is learning from each other, which is part of why we're having this webinar. And also, we just have such a great community of institutions that are implementing CPL across CAIL, so we can definitely learn from our other members as well. Alicia, I see a question here about using credits for CPL credits for major courses versus elective courses or general ed courses. Perhaps the panelists would want to speak to that. What are the policies at your institution?
So at Morgan, CPL credit can be used for any gen ed, lower level, upper level, And so there's no limitation on that. The policy is specifically does not limit whether it has to be only free elective credit.
We are the same. There are no limitations.
Same.
We have of course, a policy. Some faculty may say, well, are they bringing all their credits in? But we have a policy on how many credits must be acquired at the institution. We're a SACS institution, and so there's a SACS requirement for that to ensure that individuals are getting the requisite material from the university as well.
All right. I'm gonna grab Hi, Dr. Ravi, welcome.
I am so sorry for the delay. I am so sorry. I had some technical difficulties. So sorry.
No problem. Welcome. We're glad you finally got everything situated. If you want to take a moment and just introduce yourself a little bit.
My name is Kokila Ravi. I am from Atlanta Metropolitan State College. We are a unit of the University System of Georgia. We are an open access institution, predominantly serving African American first generation students.
All right, and so we've talked a little bit. We brought up your work with engaging faculty a little bit while we were waiting for you to join, and so I don't know if you wanted to elaborate a little bit on some of the ways and how you were able to engage faculty in this work.
Thank you. Yes, we see faculty as the lifeblood. They are at the front line. In many ways, it is extremely useful to have faculty involved in the process because they meet students on a daily basis and they know about students' prior learning history, accomplishments, etc. Timely recognition of CPL potential is extremely critical to the success of the program. So faculty are really very helpful, are a key component in this process. We have a CPL committee, and we have 4 faculty members involved in that. Then we have the registrar, chairs, academic support system, advisement, etc. So again, faculty play a key role in that. I must acknowledge a small grant that we received from Adult Learning Consortium and the University System of Georgia. So that's to the tune of about $25,000. And that is very helpful in engaging faculty in the process because we now have 2 faculty members. They are called faculty liaisons, and they help with setting up an adult learner connect course for adult learners. This is a course that we have created in our learning management system, and all adult learners are enrolled in the course. So they get an opportunity to engage with each other, engage with the faculty members, get to know the process, ask all their questions, etc. And then another faculty member is working with our web page design and all of that. So that is extremely helpful. Now, I may have, I wish I could talk about that, but part of our options, CPL option, one of the CPL options is portfolio. And that really looks like it's a very viable component. However, because of its inherently complex nature, not many students opt for it. So now we are trying to create challenge exams in certain courses so that our students may be able to take a shot at that. So that's where, again, this involves faculty, and they are quite intimately involved in the process. Also, thanks to the Adult Learning Consortium grant, we are able to train our faculty in PLA counseling. So they are well aware of the process.
Okay, great, thank you. And are there any other, so you guys are utilizing challenge exams and portfolio. Are there any other methods of CPL that you guys are utilizing at Atlanta Metro?
We use AP, PLEP, JST, ACE credit recommendations, all of them, because we are first generation students, and because not many of our adult learners have AP credit, we don't get that much request for that. We do get a few club students. So overall, I don't think we get more than 10 students taking full advantage of our CPL options. I believe the problem is because students are not aware of it. By the time they get to know it, it's a little bit too late. So it's now part of our strategic goal. Adult learner enrollment is part of our strategic goal, is one of our strategic goals. So we are keenly hoping that once we popularize this program, more students will take advantage of this.
Great. Thank you. So I've got some questions from the chat for everyone. The first one is about charging for portfolios. Do you charge the students for the portfolios? And how much? And I know there have been some answers in the chat as well, but for the panelists.
Our fee is $150.
At Atlanta Metro, we charge $250 per portfolio for the student, but our foundation is very generous in going ahead and sponsoring that fee because we want to promote this portfolio process. So.
At Morgan, we're not yet charging a fee because the process to get a fee approved is about a year to 18 months. And so we will eventually charge a fee, but we are in that process of negotiating that through all of the various stakeholders, including our chief financial officer, our board of regents, our university council, all of those.
And how much are you all paying faculty for their assessment, if at all?
This is $250 per evaluation.
We don't pay our faculty anything. It's a pro bono service. But I have evaluated portfolios for the University System of Georgia's E-Core and E-Major program, and they pay faculty $250 for evaluating portfolios.
All right, and so I'm going to take a question from the Q&A. Engineering, both BS and BTech have to meet quite rigorous accreditation standards set by ABET, the Engineering Accrediting Agency. Have there been any significant differences between BS and BTech programs in terms of acceptance of prior learning? I would expect a lot more pushback because of the more substantial math and science requirements. So does the math and science have any kind of impact on some of these STEM programs and utilizing CPL for them?
At Morgan, we allow any school or college to identify and have specific programs that they will not accept credit for prior learning for, but that has to be documented, and they can't go back and forth like accept it and then not accept it. In the College of Interdisciplinary and Continuing Studies, our 8 undergraduate programs, we accept up to 50% of the degree, so 60 credits can be done through credit for prior learning.
Is anyone else using CPL and STEM courses in particular? Sounds like a growth opportunity for us. Fantastic.
Do any of you offer CPL at the graduate level?
Not at this time.
Morgan does. And so we're looking at how That's largely been through challenge exams. And now we're working on how our portfolio process can be used by graduate students.
All right. Another question we have from the Q&A is, do you have data for those people over 50 who are coming back for upskilling, reskilling, or next skilling, and if this is increasing? So what is or kind of the sense that older adults are coming back and taking advantage of these CPL opportunities?
At Atlanta Metro, 40% of our students are adult learners. So we have currently about 450 to 500 enrolled adult learners. And this has definitely been an increase. We were serving predominantly traditional age students, but there has been a spike, increase from about 25, 30%. This growth has been very steady. And in Georgia, I think about 35 to 40% of adults have some college, no degree. So this is a huge population that we need to tap into, and it's becoming more and more of a strategic goal initiative for many of our system institutions.
Like Dr. Ravi, our average student age within the College of Interdisciplinary and Continuing Studies is 43 years old. Our oldest student is 88. So we are absolutely seeing that. And with what's happening at the federal level, Maryland is a state that's greatly impacted by loss of federal government jobs. And so we are seeing an increase and an uptick in former federal workers coming back for degree completion or certificates. And we anticipate being able to help with credit for prior learning as part of those returners.
I'm just scrolling through the chat so that I don't, hoping I'm not missing any questions. Have any of you all tried attaching the continuing education classes and the CEUs attached to those and determining CPL credits for courses like that?
Yeah. Thank you for the idea.
At Morgan, it's through the portfolio process. So a great example is we have a course that's Traditions of African Dance, PAGC 300. So it's an upper level elective. And we had an individual who led a Sankofa dance troupe here in Baltimore and could demonstrate that. And so we've been successful in sort of using that non-credit experience as part of their credit for prior learning, but it's through the portfolio process.
Then we have a question about micro-credentials. How do micro-credentials and certifications fit within CPL on your campuses?
For certifications, we accept certifications for credit for the actual course if an individual can demonstrate that they have certification in a specific area. We haven't done micro-credential.
At Morgan, it's a coincidence of where micro-credentials lives and where credit for prior learning lives. So it wasn't like, oh, we should house these things together. It just so happened that the same groups of people were working on them. And so there's been a lot of synergy and collaboration, including sort of building out a micro-credential for faculty to build micro-credentials that could be then used for credit for prior learning. We think in terms of learning outcomes and sort of building to the academic standards as we're building out our micro-credentials.
we have a lot of interest in the program, but we really haven't utilized micro credentials yet. But we do accept post certification for our criminal justice program, and they do get certain credits for completing post certification.
We've got about 7 or 8 minutes left. There's a question. You may have addressed this, but do any of you have a systematic process for accepting caregiving for adult learners who have worked in caregivers in the home? No one has. Okay. Um, has anyone given credit for LinkedIn badges? Am I missing any questions in the chat? I think I've gone through and tried to get most of them.
Are there any questions or final questions from the audience? We'd like to, if you drop those in the chat, we'd like to take those. But I wonder if we could also turn to some final advice from our panelists who've been working so hard within HBCU institutions to implement this approach. What would you say to other HBCUs or PBIs who are interested in implementing CPL?
I think I've said my recommendation, and I think just hearing from the variety of panelists today, we're at the very early stage. I think Morgan State and all the other speakers are at the end. So don't get discouraged. You have to begin somewhere. So if you haven't begun, again, you have to take a bite at the apple. And so for us, what really has been working is for us to build the foundation right. I think a lot of institutions want to go right to let's start evaluating portfolio, and they haven't thought through the whole process. How are you going to get the word out that you have CPL? Who's doing the evaluation? How is admission? How are your support units around adult learners? And so for us, the strategic approach that we are taking by building the foundation has been working. And so for individuals who are early on in the process, I think that is something you may want to think about.
At Morgan, we have really focused on it from an educational justice perspective. And so and around 3 C's. So completion, so credit for prior learning as a path to completion, coalition of those who care. So making sure that anyone who would benefit from credit for prior learning, your military services, your transfer team, your adult learner college, they're involved in the conversation, and those faculty advocates who really are rooted in student success. And then cost, credit for prior learning, especially with the rhetoric around affordability of higher education. This is a path to reduce the cost of higher education. And so completion, coalition, and cost would be my 3 recommendations.
I believe faculty buy-in is very, very important. Once faculty realize and understand the value of this, then there is a very good chance for the program to take off. Also, it's very key for all entities of the institution to be invested in this. Everyone needs to know, including advisement, including the registrar, and the recruiters. All of them need to know what prior CPL is, and they need to be able to communicate this to their to other stakeholders. Then it becomes a win-win for everyone. For us, we are still struggling to get the word out and get students to know about this. It's all over. It's on our webpage, but students don't seem to access it. That's why we are relying heavily on our faculty to promote the process. And once they come to us quickly, early on, during their matriculation, this would be very helpful for them. And we have several options. It's all in place, but students need to reach out. So that's the most important thing, I think.
So for me, I agree with everyone. And to remain flexible, because it changes. Like I said, the conversation about credit for prior learning is fluid. It may work one semester, so you may have to pivot the next semester. So I would just say stay open, and collaboration is also a big thing. You have to have faculty buy-in. You cannot do CPL without the faculty buy-in. They maintain the rigor of the process. So I would say have faculty buy-in. Keep the conversations going. It's ever changing, especially for us at Delaware State University. So that's what I would say. Just be collaborative, fluid, and in a position to pivot when you need to.
All right, thank you all. I wanted to take a moment and share some of Kale's resources related to CPL before we go. I see we have a few more questions. If you go to, and these are some QR codes you can do, we have a link to our prior learning assessment CPL page. If you click on this, and this one gives some more information and a resource kit for starting and looking into more data on credit for prior learning. We also wanted to share with you our 50th anniversary impact report, and you can get those, and that's the QR code for that. We also have these, we'll send out the slide deck to everyone, so you'll have them. And then in addition to that, if you click on this, this is a CPL white paper, the 4 stages of building an effective and inclusive CPL program. And it really provides kind of a blueprint step for those who are interested in starting to build and some of the questions that we've discussed today in building a CPL program.
Thank you, Alicia. And so as we come to the end of our hour here, please join me again in thanking our panelists for sharing about their experiences. So grateful to have all of you on board and really to talk about the spectrum of work that is happening around CPL across HBCU institutions. And these are just a few of the examples. If you would like to learn more or connect with these institutions, they are happy to share more about their experience. So please just reach out to Alicia or I, and we'll be happy to connect you with them. I know there were a few questions we couldn't get to, so we'll be happy to connect you with folks so that you can get those questions answered. We will send out our slides, which also have some additional information about the value of CPL. We chose not to share that information in the interest of having more time for conversation, but we will have that available to you.